We're here at KRE, thought it was a great opportunity while we're in Queensland to have a bit of a look at some of the differences of some of the things that we've been talking about in the videos. I've got Ken with me today. So we have a crank, the difference in cranks between what we run in the Camaro and what we run in the ZB Commodore. Can you want to just run us through that?
Yeah, so like the old COF cars, they had the billet crankshafts, Winbergs or Bryant, and they were all super finished, still sounding counterweighted, but quite a expensive crankshaft, but extremely strong. Where the cranks we run now, to help meet the cost, are still a very good crankshaft. They're a 4340 non-twist forging, but you can see the differences in the machine work, and it's all cost related. These guys, you can get a billet crank the same, but you're back to that $10,000 price point. So, but yeah, they're definitely a lot stronger, but it's just the abuse that they get in these cars.
And the cranks that are breaking, where is that becoming an issue?
The one we had was through the thrust, and you can see like this crank here, it's got a tinge of blue where the thrust bearing runs up inside there. So they're just on that start line where they're getting such a hard time. You can see it chips all that bearing away, and then it overheats the crankshaft, and then they turn blue, and then it anneals the crankshaft, and then the heat treating changes, and then it cracks. But we've only had the one. I'm not sure about the Ford stuff. I think they're breaking when they normally break through here, which is more vibration. But we've had no issues with the crankshafts, other than we're trying to burn them up with the thrust bearing.
And when you look at the difference in cranks, you talk about this being a billet, so that means they get a block of steel and then they machine it up. Where this one, they get the metal really hot, they pour it into a forging, and it comes out and they machine it up like this, right? So that's really the difference, but this is definitely a stronger item.
It's a stronger item, and when you're getting these high temperatures, and that's still going to fail, but it'll take longer to do it. Where these ones, like I said, they don't like that sort of heat being put through them.
And you feel that these, the failure that we're getting with these, so this is one of the big problems with the Camaro at the moment and the Mustang.
Yep.
That on the start they're so heavily loaded, and I don't know if you can get a close look at how it's, this is what a new one looks like, and that's what a used one looks like. But you can see how the material is coming off there, and then what that does is it gets into the oil filter. Then we have to basically clean it up, and depending on how much material in there, depends on whether you need to replace these.
Yeah. We'll see if there's reasonable amount, we'll leave the engine in. If it's obviously large, then we'll change the engine out, and we just bring the motor back, pull the sump off, swap the bearings. These are the new ones like we ran up in Darwin this year, when we had some issues with these tangs breaking. These are the new version that just turned up today. They're a lot stronger, so we'll test them. So having a 3-piece bearing gives you that compliance in the bearing. So when it is loaded, it can self-center, and it's a different material, and the oil grooves are different. So both bearings work well. It's just they've both got their problems once they get that hammering on the start line.
Why wasn't that such a big problem in the ZB?
You can see on the rear main, on the crankshaft here, you got twice the amount of bearing, and it's a lot wider, and the main cap is that wide on the back of the block, where now we've got a skinny cap in the middle of the block, so we get a little bit of flex in the aluminium block. So it's also point loading the bearing. So there's a couple of things with the flex from the chassis and the less surface area on the bearing. The bearing's not as strong in the block as the old cast iron block.
Okay, well hopefully that's explained to you a little bit about what's going on with the difference in crankshafts from the Camaro, or from the Camaro to the Commodore, and what we're doing with the thrust bearings and why it all happens.